Meanwhile, the Republicans are still promoting like crazy their tax cut plan, which they are calling, and the the complicit media, a phrase that I almost never use, but wow, I don't know what else. It keeps calling this thing a health care bill. This is not a health care bill unless you define taking away from healthcare, taking healthcare away from people as a health care bill. Anyhow, on the line with us is Ben Wikler, the Washington director of MoveOn.org. MoveOn has been, and you can tweet to Ben at Ben Wikler, Wikler, or at MoveOn. Ben, welcome back to the program. It's been a while.
It's great to be here.
Thank you. So, MoveOn has been at the forefront of a lot of progressive change over the years. Tell us what you all are doing with regard to this tax cut, health care, repeal Obamacare, whatever legislation.
This is one of the most deadly, vicious, cynical, and greed-fueled pieces of legislation in American history. And MoveOn and pretty much every progressive group you can name are going all out to the mat this week to try to stop it. Anyone listening right now has a role to play. This is red alert moment. The Senate is trying to vote this Thursday, maybe this Friday. Mitch McConnell is going to try to jam this through, throwing aside basically every norm and tradition of the Senate. MoveOn is on high alert. We just actually got back from a three-state tour with Bernie Sanders to try to raise the alarm in West Virginia, in Ohio, and in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Thousands of people turning out at each of these stops, just roaring and stomping and thundering, demanding that their Republican senators vote against it. Now, as we go into this week, thing number one is just melting the phone lines in Senate offices. If you can't get through to your Senate office in Washington, D.C., then go to contactingcongress.org and find the local office numbers around your state. They need to hear from you. The second thing is there's going to be just a flood of protests. In D.C., this starts tomorrow. We're launching something called the People's Filibuster with Planned Parenthood and a bunch of other partners. It's going to be continuous rolling protests outside the Capitol starting at 2 p.m. on Tuesday, into the evening on Tuesday, starting at 8 a.m. Wednesday. That'll turn into a 24-hour vigil that night led by faith groups. So basically, every moment from 8 a.m. on Wednesday until the vote happens on Thursday, there's going to be protesters outside the Capitol. And the biggest moment for that, if you're within driving distance, if you're within flying distance and can take the time to fly to D.C., we're going to form a human chain all the way around the U.S. Capitol building starting at 5 p.m. on Wednesday night. If you can get there right on time, great. If not, come late. It'll go for a while. We want to just ring the entire Capitol and make absolutely clear the human stakes, how many people this would kill, how many families this would devastate if Republicans rip away people's health care. And then on top of that, if you're somewhere else in the country, there will be vigils around the country in key states organized by Ultraviolet on Tuesday night, all over the place on Wednesday, and on Thursday organized by Organizing for America and SEIU and other groups. MoveOn will be recruiting and partnering with all of those. This is it, folks. It is time to pull out all the stops. And if you can't do any of that, just make sure that you are tweeting and sharing on Facebook and spreading the word by word of mouth. We want this to be like Election Day, unmissable. We want everyone in the country to know what Republicans are trying to do. Because if this is public enough, if this is toxic enough, there are a bunch of Republicans that are terrified enough of the political inferno that awaits them that they might pull back from the brink. No one knows how this is going to turn out, but we might actually be able to win.
Ben, I was a little out of touch over the weekend. Did you get any coverage? I mean, had a Tea Party senator gone into any of those three states that you just mentioned that you and Bernie were in, and drawn even 500 people, it would have been all over the media. 500 people showed up for complete repeal of Obamacare or whatever. I didn't see much coverage of this. Are you discovering an institutional bias on the part of corporate media toward Republicans?
Yeah, for sure. Listen, this should have been getting wall-to-wall coverage on the cable networks that Trump likes to watch and tweet about so much.
You would think.
Instead it was a little bit of this, a little bit of that. There was some coverage. They did pick it up, but it was none of them took it live. And frankly, they took a lot of Tea Party things live for the last for 8 years of the Obama administration.
Right.
These were big events. On a Saturday night, we had 1,600 people in downtown Pittsburgh talking about Medicaid. There were 2,300 people in Columbus, Ohio. There were more than 1,800 people in in Charleston, West Virginia. That's a city of 50,000. We had like about 2% of the entire city was there.
Wow.
This is, these were big things, and frankly, the whole crisis of the healthcare bill is that mainstream media, for the most part, has been ignoring it. It's starting to wake up now, but Mitch McConnell has done this clever strategy playing into press bias, where he does it all by dark of night, and the press likes to follow, people walking around doing PVE things. They like to follow pamphlets. They like to follow, things where there's all these little breaking scoops. And by doing this in a secret way, Mitch McConnell has kept the American people from realizing the magnitude of the political crime that is unfolding under their noses. That is why we're trying to sound the alarm. That was the point of the tour. We've got to punch through that. And that the only thing that will really do it is if enough of us are in the streets at these protests making enough of a roar that it's something they can't ignore.
Yeah. Now, right now, Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, says that a health insurance company cannot charge somebody in their 50s or 60s more than 3 times as much as they would charge somebody in their late teens or 20s. The Republicans raised that from 3 times to 5 times. If my recollection is correct, you guys at MoveOn.org, Ben Wikler, have called this the age tax. Do I have that right? That's a great meme, and how's it going?
Yeah, so our friends at AARP came up with age tax. We are echoing it, and everybody should. This is a giant age tax. The other side of the coin here, Republicans not only are increasing the prices, but they're ripping away the protections that allow people not to have to pay those whole prices. Right now, there's a cap on how much of your income you might have to spend for your health care. And so even if the premiums go up a ton, which they have been in many places, the subsidies the federal government provides ensure that it cannot make people drive them into bankruptcy in the same way. Republicans end that. Republicans, under the Republican bill, if you're an older American, your premiums could jump to by $4,000 in a bunch of different states, to a significant fraction of your income, totally unaffordable. And that's why so many people will lose their insurance coverage, because they won't be able to afford the incredibly high costs that older Americans especially are going to have to pay.
Right.
And then go on. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, I remember back in '82 when the Greenspan, I think it was '82, the Greenspan Commission was running along with Daniel Patrick Moynihan at the behest of Ronald Reagan to, quote, reform Social Security. And Reagan wanted to raise the retirement age up to 67. And they said, okay, we'll do this, but nobody who remembers this moment will be alive. And so, right now, people who retire, you have to be 66, and in a couple of years, you have to be 67. So literally, they phased that in 30 years down the road. So it missed the CBO score, and it missed the outrage. A lot of what Republicans are doing is moving these real draconian cuts out 5, 7, and more than 10 years out, so that the Congressional Budget Office score won't even reflect the worst parts of what they're doing. Your thoughts on that, and whether they can get away with it?
This is just the same, really just vicious greed-fueled cynicism that courses through this entire bill. We can stop them from getting away with it by sounding the alarm and kicking up, a firestorm of protest. One thing that's helpful is Senator Chris Murphy asked the Congressional Budget Office to calculate the effects of their bill beyond the 10-year normal window. And
great.
He says they've agreed to do that. So we, cross your fingers, we might actually have numbers on the size of the Medicaid cuts, the impact on people losing their insurance after, beyond 10 years.
Right.
And, it's critical that we call attention to those numbers as well. It's really unconscionable. I mean, it's worth remembering. They say this is about Obamacare repeal. It's actually, that's just a little piece of it. The biggest part of it is a gigantic assault on Medicaid in order to fund a tax cut for the rich. Most of the money comes just from ripping it directly out of Medicaid. And that means, 2/3 of seniors in nursing homes are supported by Medicaid. 1/3 of Medicaid funding goes to people with disabilities. Medicaid funds, when those disappear, state budgets collapse. And so states are suddenly going to be cutting funding for teachers, laying off teachers, increasing class sizes, delaying construction, cutting off public safety, water inspections, all this kind of stuff. All those things are going to happen if they pass this bill, because it kicks out the teeth of the Medicaid program, ends the fundamental guarantee that it provides, just in order to give a tax cut to the wealthiest people in the country.
Yeah, this is truly amazing. Ben, in the minute we have left, what online resources are available to people that you would recommend?
Go to moveon.org is the first thing I would say. Sign up for our email, sign up for our text alerts. If you text the word CARE to 668-336, that's 668-336, then you'll get text alerts, and we'll be sending those out to alert you to actions and protests and moments when calls are necessary during this week. So we'd love you to plug in, but also sign up for Planned Parenthood, indivisibleguide.org. Other progressive groups are all going to be manning the barricades this week.
Right. Presumably our revolution will be out there too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. And thanks so much for your focus on this, even if the mainstream media is missing the boat.
Oh yeah, no, we've been on this for a long, long time, and I see this as part of a larger plan, frankly, by the Republicans, called the reverse of the Reagan legacy project, where they built a statue to Ronald Reagan in every single county in the United States, and to this day they have people rewriting Wikipedia. This is the Obama anti-legacy project. They're trying to destroy everything he did. Ben Wikler with MoveOn.org. Thank you, Ben.
Thanks so much.
Great talking to you. We'll be back.